Netherlands in lane 4 and China in lane 5.
And this rep's going to be really tough. We've got 2 repechages, so in the men's 8, unlike what we saw there with the women's 8, there's only 2 to qualify from 5. That's not where you want to be. This is really unpleasant. It's really going to be a tough rep as we have a look here at the crew from Ukraine. 2 of them in the 6th and 7th seat were in the quad scull that finished 6th at the Rio Olympics. The Romanians just backing it down, getting attached to the stake boat. 6 under-23s from this year who picked up silver medals in Plovdiv, the venue for the 2018 World Championships. I'm sure the organisers from Plovdiv will be looking at everything happening here, thinking how can they replicate this. The British crew in lane 3. They were Olympic champions last year, but only one of them is returning, the man in the centre of the boat, Tom Ransley. And this crew has struggled to find consistency in form in 2017. The Netherlands in lane 4. They've had a consistent time at the European Championships and World Cups, but they were disappointing in the heat here. They need to step up. And the crew from China, who haven't raced at all in 2017. The only information we can get on them is that back in the Egg-Billet World Championships 2 years ago, 2 of them were in the double scull, and another was in the coxless 4. They finished up in 20th position and 25th position. So you wouldn't say that's a lot of form guide for the Chinese crew. Let's see if they can step on. As I've said, only 2 will qualify out of 5, and then we'll watch another repechage in this event. Very excitingly, we saw the German crew dominant and the Italians going straight through to the final in the 2 heats. So they're already there, and we'll find out which other crews are going to be joining them
And we're away in this first repechage of the men's 8, and as you were saying, Greg, this is such a tough ask. I mean, 2 crews go through, there's 5 in the race, and you've got some really pedigree crews here. The Dutch, the British, probably 2 of the favourites, but I don't think that anyone will die wondering. The Chinese, they've blasted out here alongside the Dutch. Anything could happen in this early stage. We ride with the British crew here.
Yeah, in an 8th race, there's some silence, there's some calm before the storm, and then suddenly that light goes green and it all goes off. The coxes start shouting, urging their crews on, and the crews get away with all the adrenaline pumping, and the young Romanian crew from the under-23s have got away really hard and fast. And to be fair to them, a canvas lead in an 8, the white part at the front of the boat, is a decent lead that they've got already through the first minute of the race.
Yeah, we've been speaking a lot in smaller boats this morning about the danger, I guess, of putting yourself out there too early and then paying for that in the second half of the race. I actually think it's the opposite in the race. If you get dropped, in the 8, if you get dropped early in the race, it's really, really hard to come back onto terms with another crew. It's really important to have a good start in the 8, and generally, if you're not in it at the 500-metre mark, you're not going to be at it in the race at the 2,000-metre mark.
Yeah, that's right. Strong moves from the crews from Netherlands and Romania, both up there, and I think the Ukraine crew and Great Britain will be concerned to have given away half a length in 500 metres. Often half a length is too much, and you can be faster for the whole of the next 1,500, but you won't get back half a length if you lose it in 500.
You can see Roll Brass there, the big Dutchman. We've seen him in the single scull, we've seen him in the pair, back in the 8, giving a little bit more power to this boat. But the Romanians, they're raiders up, they're sitting up level with the Dutch. Only a seat down at this stage as they come through 750-metre mark. The British still half a length down.
If anything, I think the Romanians have moved out on the British. I think the Dutch have moved out on the British. Henry Fieldman there in the strokes in the coxing seat is going to have to ask for a response now from his crew. Like you said, Sarah, this is not a singles race or a doubles race where a lot can happen. The British are going to have to turn this around if they want to make something happen, and they've got to start doing it now.
It's a really incredible race here from the Romanians, who perhaps even look like they're starting to move up to almost level with the Dutch. Fortune certainly favours the brave here in this 8 as they come through the 1,000-metre mark. They're halfway through this race, 2 crews to progress to the final. What a coup this will be for the Romanians if they can get through.
But what a brave race the Romanians have taken on alongside the Dutch in the near side. Very smooth rowing. The batman in this Dutch crew, he's actually a former lightweight, now racing at heavyweight, sitting in the bow seat, setting the boat up for the rest of the crew. See the Romanians powering along. They're not rowing a big finish, but they don't really need to. If anything, I think there's a tailwind on the course, so you can afford to front load the stroke. The Romanians have actually now moved in front of that very calm Dutch crew beside them.
Yeah, as you say, there's not a big finish. They don't have a lot of body swing into the back end of the stroke, but they're rating extremely high, 43 strokes per minute as they come through almost the 1250 metre mark. All the other crews down on 38 strokes a minute. I mean, 43 strokes per minute at this point in the 8. They're not going to have anywhere to go, though, is the only risk with what they're currently doing.
But they've got 2/3 of a length, and 2/3 of a length is a lot in an 8 with only 650 metres to go. It would be a large bit of blowing up if the Romanians are to blow from here and get rowed through from the British. The British will have to do something in response. I think the Dutch are looking very solid with the name Johan Cruyff, the famous footballer, on their boat. The British are trying to come back at the Dutch crew, but there's a lot to do here in the final as they come up towards this final 500 metres.
Wow, incredible race here. Still the Dutch and the Romanians locked together at the 1500 metre mark. Still both with 3/4 of a length over the British. It looks like now as though the Ukraine and China are well and truly out of it. It is these two crews that are certainly looking like the favourites to go through. The British that have to do something if they want to get themselves into the race, but I'm afraid that they're going to run out of water. It looks like this incredibly brave performance here from the Romanians, who were still up on 44 strokes per minute, keeping themselves in that all-important second and qualifying position.
And it's hurting in this British crew. It'll be hurting because they're behind, and that crew beside them, the brave young Romanians, have just gone for it. They've stepped out straight from the start. They're not rowing a big finish. They're short, if you like. They're just banging along on that front end, getting the blade in, getting it through to that centre point where you move the boat fast, and then they're just getting up and getting onto the next stroke.
And we saw that the Dutch were down on 38 strokes a minute as compared to the 44 strokes a minute from the Romanians. The Romanians really with nowhere to go, but we can see now the response from the Dutch as they take their rate up. They're now taking a seat, you know, almost every 3 or 4 strokes, so they're really starting to move out. They've now got 5 seats on the Romanians, but the Romanians, I mean...
Well, the Dutch look like you're supposed to row, don't they? The Romanians are just going for it. They're just battering it, and they're keeping the boat moving. They're going to keep it moving all the way to the finish line. It's only a couple of strokes to go, and it's a win for the Netherlands. The Romanians will qualify for the final. The British will be extremely disappointed to have been pushed out in that very tough repechage in Ukraine, and in front of us now the crew from China just coming down to the line. But that was a great controlled race from the Netherlands. Really unpleasant to have to come out, do that race in the heat, but they'll feel confident as they go towards the final, as we see the Romanians shaking hands, congratulating themselves on a really brave and really strong performance.
That was unbelievable. I mean, I think we saw quite a disappointing race from the Dutch in their heat. They were back in 4th behind the Australians, who were in 3rd, who we'll see in this next repechage. It's not somewhere that we would have expected to see the Dutch men's 8, particularly after the performances that they'd had earlier in the year. In fact, getting 2 crews, I believe their senior and their under-23 crews, through to the A final in Lucerne. So 4th in their heat would have been a disappointment, particularly given the strength and the experience on board that crew, but certainly showing that they're back in the game now. And as we said before, going through the repechages isn't necessarily a negative thing. They've clearly had a much better race, and I think that they'll be much better placed for the A final this weekend.
I've always thought there's a bit of magic about the Netherlands. Whenever I race Dutch crews, you always know that they could just pull something out. They could just have that little bit of magic. It was nearly 20 years ago, 19 years ago, or no, my maths, 21 years ago, at the Atlanta Olympics, where they won gold in the men's 8, and that crew certainly had that ability to just change pace, to race, but to look so smooth and calm and controlled. And I thought there was a calmness and a controlled performance about this Dutch crew that we've seen today. The Romanian crew was all about guts and determination and taking it on, and just great to see 8s racing like that.
Yeah, a lovely demonstration there from the Dutch. Some great slow motion shots there. Wow, what a row from the Romanians. I have to say, I didn't see that coming.
Well, we didn't see that coming, but I guess this is what happens in the first year of the Olympiad. That crew, they were at the Under-23 Championships, the Romanians. They got a silver medal in Plovdiv just a month or so ago, and then they've been able to keep training, and they were up and they were going fast then, and then they were just kept it going. They're good at racing high, they're good at racing fast. I think these conditions probably help them, that